welcome back to Healthier Now. Now, normally on Healthier Now, we do a breakdown of the science or we do a reaction video. But in this video, we're going to look at a real world application of that science. I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by a fellow Irish carnivore, Amanda, who has been thriving on a carnivore diet for 15 months. Amanda, it's brilliant to have you on the show and to share your experience and your story. To kick things off, take us back to a year and a half ago. Before you found this way of eating, what was the biggest mainstream misinformation that you were following? And how was it failing your health before you decided to transition to a full carnivore diet?
Well, hi, Chris. Great to be talking with you. I heard I've been following Dr. Ken Berry and Kerry on Homestead How for a number of years now, and I found very interesting, especially coming from a doctor, Ken being a doctor. It's been it's kind of really sat well with me. Everything that he's saying, from a common sense approach to health. So that was really good, really refreshing. Because I've had to go to doctors with my husband, and it's discouraging to me, because they're reading off a totally different textbook to what makes common sense to me. So that was really good. I did struggle with my weight my whole life. I was very athletic from 8 years of age up till I was 16 when I was injured. And I found that food was my comfort. I loved food. And I kept really trim because playing camogie, I was playing all the time every weekend. So I kept really trim. But when I got injured at 16, I ballooned. But so I did have a struggle my whole life with food. And I was addicted to food. And as I say, I had some things I was working through, trying to anyway, and I just pushing down with food, with junk food. And so when I got into my 20s, I had 2 babies by the time I was 25. And my weight was just, it was horrible. I was 15 stone. And I just, I hated when I had the mindset, to be active. But my mindset was an active one, and yet my body just presented as this blob, and of course, my food addiction was getting worse because it wasn't getting addressed. I tried everything like Weight Watchers, Slimming World, and I found when I did get active again, I did work through, I had my injury in my knee. I went set dancing, and I found the weight just fell off me, but I was distracted. I was having a good time. I wasn't eating. I wasn't thinking about food. And you couldn't eat and dance at a ceilidh with a big lot in your stomach because it's so fast, the movement, And I got to a point in my life in my early 40s, and I did develop high blood pressure that my doctor was really scared about. And he thought really he should be sending me to the hospital in an ambulance after I went over for a routine visit. And I told him I wasn't going in an ambulance and I wasn't taking his medicine. If he could please help me with some other way to get my blood pressure under control. And he looked at me and a smile formed on his face, which I was so used to getting. But when it was coming from a doctor, it really irritated me. And this smile came on his face. Well, you could try and lose the weight, And I walked out of his office and I didn't go back for a whole year. But I lost the weight. In 3 months, I lost the weight. Then I moved to America. And I thought I was eating the same foods. I thought I had lost the weight by just cutting my portions down by a third of what I had been eating. So that was a calorie deficit. And I became more active. I got a more physical job as well as going for walks every day. But then when I moved to the United States, it's not as safe to go for walks. Even though I was eating the same foods, I was amassing weight. I joined a gym. I was working out 5 times a week, and I was getting bigger and bigger and bigger, thinking I'm eating oatmeal, thinking I'm eating, um, healthy meats, healthy veg. And you think, how can they not be? They're meat and they're veg, and keeping carbs low, because I had learned to do that. But I was just getting bigger and bigger. So I found myself different weighing scales numbers over here. So I found myself getting up to 235 pounds, which is way too heavy for me. And as I was going to the gym, and the poor guy, the fitness coach at the gym, he was baffled because he could see how hard I was working 5 days a week. And not only that, I had two big dogs I was walking, and I would go for 2-hour walks in the woods with them, with snakes and everything coming
Yeah,
out.
that's scary.
And I like, it was just, how am I not losing this weight? So it wasn't that I'm lazy. It wasn't that, I the calories, I guess, they're just the type of calories that I didn't feel I was eating extra calories, but the calories that I was eating were loaded with sugar as compared to what I might have been eating at home. The same food, that I'm picking
Mm.
up in the grocery store, but it's loaded now with sugar. And then my health plummeted. I was inflamed. Um, and I just, it was soul destroying. But anyway, he mentioned to me, I just said, please, if you tell me what to do, I'm pumped. I'm going to do whatever you tell me to do. And he said the word keto. And I thought,
Mm.
I don't know, can I do that? And within 2 weeks, a friend of mine said, Mandy, I found this diet. And she was always on diets. And she said, I found this diet, and it's the best diet I've ever done. It's the most easiest. And I'm like, well, sign me up. What do I have to do? Who do I have to pay? And she said the word keto. And I felt, oh no. And why I was doing that is because I had tried the Atkins diet years before, about 10 years before this. And everybody brought their concerns to me about this diet, and I felt I can't stick to that, because of these dangers. Or it's only meat. What am I going to do? All the cancer scares, everything. So I was like, well, I can't. That's not healthy. I want to be skinny, but I want to be healthy too. Anyhow, then she said, just try it. And I tried it. And I couldn't believe, for the first time in my life, I wasn't thinking about food. I didn't have, let's go to McDonald's, make a ham sandwich there. I just did all of that, just shut up. It was like a revelation to me. And, I was afraid to say anything in case it made me, feel like I wanted to go get something to eat. But I just wasn't hungry. I'd eaten some bacon and eggs, and I wasn't hungry. And then I had planned to do some low carb veg and some chicken or steak or something for my dinner. And I remember thinking, I'm not even hungry. I'm not starving. And the the feeling of starvation never left me. It was always there. I was always hungry. I was never full, never. So this was a revelation to me, and I started this in 2018, and the weight fell off me. It was like one week I was here this size, and the next week I was transformed. But what I loved how I was looking, how I was feeling, and all of the workouts that I had done. You could see now, you could see definition in my muscles and things. Um, But what I loved was that food noise had knocked off that switch. And I had no cravings. It didn't bother me. I drove past 10 different donut shops, on the one trip to the grocery store. That was all, it was all over. And so I maintained that weight all through. Then of course, we had COVID come in 2019, and I maintained my weight. I did experience, before the pandemic shut down, I did experience people, taken aback about my food choices. And this really irritated me, because finally, for the first time in my life, I'm in control of food. And they were like, she's killing the mood. We can't go out to eat with her. She's just eating this. And I would have been eating meat and veg at that time. And they were so uncomfortable. And I might take, 5 minutes more ordering my meal if we were going into a place, to say, I don't want bread. I don't want, pasta, keep all of that, keep the fries, just give me this. And they were just, it was like, they had to say something. Like, this was so inconvenient to them. I don't know how. I don't know why it bothered them, or that. And I was the girl that always had like a dessert, no matter when we went out, no matter what I had eaten for my meal, I was always getting a dessert. And they'd have to wait for me for my dessert to come, and now this was gone, and I was giving them my full attention. I wasn't thinking about, oh, how much of this food can I get down before the next time I have to make conversation, or, and those were the things you would think about being a food addict. And so one good friend of mine, she was like, she's a vegetarian. And she hated every bite of meat I put in my mouth. She would just hate. And in the end, I had to explain to her, do you want my company, or do you just want to feel safe and secure in yourself, knowing that I'm making a pig over myself over here? I don't care what you say. You could tell me anything. I don't care, because all I'm thinking about is this food. So which Mandy do you want? And she was like, well, of course I want you to listen to me. And then I said, well, I will never listen to you if I have a plate of this type of food in front of me. Forget about it. I don't care about you. It's only the food. I'm only in this for the food then. And I really had to talk straight with her, and it's true. It's true. I'm only there for the food, if that's the food I'm going to eat. But it's so unfortunate that they don't understand. They would rather me be unhealthy, and just know what their understanding of what normal is, which to me now, when I know I have the ability to stay in control, and to be fully present, to be in company rather than just there with that plate of food, was. But anyhow, the pandemic did hit. And I guess when everything opened up again, I did have a huge sense of anxiety. I had also started drinking, but nothing that would affect my weight, but did affect my anxiety levels and possibly insulin. So when we came out, and I went to work then, I ballooned again. And I tried, as much as I was eating junk, the standard American diet again. As much as I was eating that, I would try to go back to doing the keto, but I could never stick to it in those 2 to 3 years. And in the meantime, my husband, he's a bit older than me, and he was having heart issues with atherosclerosis and that kind of thing. And the cardiologist really wanted to put him on statins and blood pressure medicine, but he's allergic to it all. And it backs up, he's only got one kidney, so it doesn't flush through his system. So I said to the cardiologist, after us trying and failing to do keto and trying to get him, he's not really into exercise the way I am. He's not into it at all. And I couldn't really motivate him to get to the gym either. And so I just said, look, if you will, because I had really been impressed with Kerry Mann, because I could see him from when he started on his carnivore journey to, I say, a year later, 15 months later, how he was doing. And I just wanted to feel how he felt. I wanted the head, the depression to kind of lift, where, because I was so depressed at how big I had gotten again and just couldn't stick to keto. And I just was so envious of his health. And then his girls came on board, and I thought, no, I'm going to. And despite all of that, like, I wasn't trying. I had done keto successfully by myself without before I ever found the internet. And when I tried to do it again, I actually joined Adapt Your Life Academy with Dr. Eric Westman, with Amy
Oh yeah.
Berger. And so I'm a member of that community as well. So we have weekly talks. I had my own private meeting with her, consultation, but nothing seemed to help me as strongly as it had done before. I wasn't just I don't know what I think I had learned too many bad habits on the internet, from other keto influencers that would promote the treats, making keto breads, all that kind of thing. And I think I just developed too many bad habits that I had to take a more drastic approach. So after this visit with a cardiologist, I went, okay, we're doing carnivore. There's no ifs, buts, and ands. That's what we're going to do. And overnight, I had been developing, skin tags all throughout all my life. I have a lot of skin tags, but they were getting bigger and more pronounced on my neck and everything, and under my arms. And I knew it was an indication of insulin resistance or pre-diabetes. So it was bothering me. And of course, my husband's health was going in the toilet. But we went on carnivore December 1 of 2020. And I can honestly say that food noise just after one day disappeared. I was back in control of what I ate. And I can't to this day understand how my friends could see me go through like a whole dinner, a whole dessert, and they're not, we're in America, so they're huge, the portions are just huge. Um, the bread rolls, I mean, disgraceful. And they would be so happy if I was sitting in front of them going through all of that instead of just my steak, just my steak. And yeah, but and still, I don't know what it is, or whether it's something like they felt powerful. Here, we're okay because she's a disgrace over there. The way she's gobbling this food down. Oh, I don't know. We've different friends now, of course. Um, yeah, but since going carnivore, it was an amazing journey. It was like that switch. I had control again. I could feel the health benefits. My own migraines were going again. I always had like inflammation in my hands. And being a school bus driver, I have to keep control of that bus, so my hands would ache all day. And I dress make as well and play guitar. So, I would need my hands to do the things that I love. And so it's great. All of that inflammation is gone down. My husband, he was diagnosed with high functioning autism and dementia last year in July. And he also developed atrial flutter, which is the heartbeat going really fast. And he had that, bless him, he had that for about 5 months. Um, so we finally have that back in rhythm now after a while. But in the in the in we'll so he was diagnosed in the July, And then he was reevaluated in January, and his disease has regressed of dementia. And the neuropsychologist, she has read about it, but she hasn't seen it. She doesn't know of any of her colleagues who have actually seen it, and she is just so excited that she's seen it. But of course, she wants us to do the Mediterranean diet. Uh, Even though she says it's better for him to be in ketosis. If his brain is feeding on ketones, that's the best for him. And I said to her, how is he going to do that on a Mediterranean diet? And she goes, I got you. You know, it's like they are forbidden to advocate for keto.
With the Mediterranean diet, it says limit beef.
Yeah.
Which is one of the most nutrient dense foods on the planet.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so she's really happy and excited, and I'm delighted. Of course, with the complications of my husband's heart beating so fast, it will have denied him oxygen where it needs to go to his brain. So I'm not seeing the progress I was hoping to see, but now that he's in sinus rhythm again, I'm seeing improvement with his with his overall how he is, but he's still, the medications that they're giving him are also, they're starting to back up in his system, and sometimes it appears like he's a little bit drunk because the medicines are not clearing out. So that's unfortunate. I would love for him to be free of those so he can really get the proper healing that he needs. But for me, I didn't lose as much weight as I had hoped. I lost about, when I went on the carnivore with him 15 months ago now, I would say I lost between 5 and 6 pounds, and it stalled out and it wasn't going anywhere. And I was a bit disheartened because I want to advocate for this type of diet, for this type of medicine. And of course, people judge by what they see, and they see still somebody that's obese. Even though the doctors have on my health report, I'm right now I'm 184 pounds, and on my latest last Thursday, I had all my blood work done and my annual visit to the doctor, and it says normal weight on there. Well, by our standards, it's not. It's not normal. I should be at least 140 or 150 for to be in the right weight bracket for my height. I'm 5'1". So yeah, so I thought, oh, good gracious, I was on Dave Mack a couple of weeks ago, and I did say, for me, the overall thing for me is my health, especially my mental health, for having control of this food noise, and not to be eaten like a lunatic, that's somebody out of control that has no willpower. I just could never understand it. But I said to him, I'm happy once I feel healthy. And I was feeling health benefits. But then I kind of stumbled into one meal a day. And that has been revolutionary for me. And I resisted, being a food addict. I'm like, what's that going, like, how am I going to handle just eating one meal a day? Is that going to wreck my progress? Is that going to set me back? Is it going to traumatize me too much? All real questions, but I had them, and it kept me from moving forward with my journey. And then just one day things happened. My husband, we went for a routine checkup and ended up in having to take him admitted to hospital. And so I was the whole day, I had no access to food. And I thought, you know what? This is crunch time now. Either this is going to be I've no choice anyway. I'm not leaving the hospital. Everything kind of shuts down at 2 where you can get real food. And I wasn't going to a vending machine. So I just said, we're going to see how this plays out. And if I can do it. And as the evening wore on, I was getting more energy. I was getting more creativity. Um, and I just felt I could go work out right now. I have that energy rather than, being in a hospital environment and feeling like everything is just sucked out of you. Being in a hospital is terrible. Um, and so I tried it and I could not believe the energy that I had. I couldn't believe there was inflammation in my body that it just went, it just disappeared. And then I really had to go back to what I was studying. I was studying like all about these things. And for me, I had identified when I did the course in insulin resistance and part of the course I was doing, and it did kind of sit well with me as respects. I think that I need to address this. So I then consulted my nutritionist, and I said to her, and the weight just started falling off me. Like I think I lost 4 or 5 pounds that first day, and I lost a pound every day for 2 weeks. So after 21 days, I had lost 12 pounds. So I said to her, why is it now the weight just fell off me? It's just melted away. And I could feel around my abdomen was where it was all kind of held on to. And she said, you possibly could have been so insulin resistant that each time you ate a meal, even though low carb, even though it was meat, that your insulin spike was too much for your body to cope with. And that made perfect sense to me. I started sleeping better. The skin tags that were kind of holding on fell off. Um, all that sort of thing. And even better for me, I found in recent months that my tolerance levels uh, were really gone down, and that things would come out of my mouth that I would never dream of saying, years
Mm.
before. And I wasn't I wasn't terribly impressed with myself. In fact, I sometimes I was a little bit ashamed. Like, why am I not handling this situation better? To me, it was a real sign that I was losing myself, that it was weak of me to respond in how I was. But that immediately turned around. So it showed me the depression was, even though I wouldn't have said I was depressed. Now that I feel so much better, so much more like myself, I know I was depressed and I know I wasn't coping. And so that was the weight loss was a win. The fat loss, I should say, is because insulin blocks your fat in your fat cells. And my insulin was run amok, so it wasn't letting anything out. And I've been going to the gym. I don't get there as often as I want to now because my circumstances have changed. But for where I was, I should have been looking a lot better again. Um, but definitely so now my mental health is improved, the fat loss is improved, and all of that inflammation is just amazing.
Great, great. Oh, that sounds great. And when you're saying that you're eating just one meal a day, what
Yeah.
would you eat for that one meal a day?
Yeah, so I eat that meal between 11 and 12 most
Okay.
days, because I like to give more of an opportunity for the rest of the day and all night then for the work to take place to get that insulin back regulated. So what I will eat is I'll have a steak. I might have a New York strip or a T-bone. We can get them here in my local area in the grocery store. I'll have one of those. I might have 2 eggs. And I'll take an hour to eat this food.
Mm.
So I've trained myself to slow down and to eat at a more relaxed pace without jumping up again, getting to a task. That hour is for me to take in that food. If I don't have a steak, I might have like a half pounder burger or two little quarter pounders, and 2 eggs. I might have some bacon. Today, because I like a variety, I cooked a chicken, and I've been taking little bits off the breast and making it like what they call a chicken salad here. But I'm just, I just season it and in some mayonnaise, and I have that with my steak. Um, so today I had a pork chop, and they're big. The pork chops are big. So the pork chop and some chicken salad, and I had a little bit of scrambled egg, and I couldn't finish the pork chop, so that's put aside. And I did have a sugar-free dessert that I make with just cream cheese, eggs, and cream, and some stevia.
Actually, I was just thinking of another question where you're talking about your husband there, that you'll see the most healing when he's off the medication. That's what I always think as well. Like if you're on a carnivore diet, you mightn't see the most healing until you're off the medication. What about your husband though? What does he eat? Does he eat something similar to you?
The very same thing. Yeah, he eats 2 meals a day. So if he doesn't finish, he doesn't have the appetite that I have, but he wasn't the food addict that I am. So I have a much bigger appetite than he does. And he'll start eating what's on his plate, and whatever he hasn't eaten, he'll get again for dinner because I'm lazy. I know. So, or not, we'll bag that up and give it to him maybe the next day, and doing something fresh. So he would start off with that, and his appetite has been really poor because of the medication that he's been taking this last month. I'm not I'm not going against the doctors. Like, he has to be on that medication for a certain amount of time. um I I don't think he has to be on it as long as they think he has to be on it, and I will say that. And I am working with them to let them know that he's building up a toxicity in his system, which long term is not going to be good for his brain. And that's where we are. His atherosclerosis actually has regressed as well. Um, he had severe atherosclerosis when we started on carnivore, when we were doing the keto, when we first went to the cardiologist. And now, this last month, it shows it's only mild. So a huge difference um, in the reduction in plaque in his arteries. He'd had a note, and of course, our cardiologist is just so fed up with us. But he wanted to scare me off the diet. And he said, because we didn't have what we have now, the reports that we have now, from severe to mild. But he kind of laughed at me. They're so patronizing. And he said he could go and have a scan, which cost nearly $300 for us out of pocket, and then our insurance on top of that. You can go, and I said, whatever you want, we'll go and get it, because I really want to, not that I want to prove to him, but I want to help my husband to see how this diet is helping him, because he's kind of averse to any kind of change or anything, that's not his normal. So we went and we had this ultrasound of, so it's when a woman is pregnant, she gets an ultrasound of the baby, but he was getting an ultrasound of his arteries here, which showed completely clear. So that was awesome. And I asked the cardiologist, is that an indication that his the arteries down here, that they would also be becoming clear? And he was like, no. And this is a young guy, and I've given him some of the medical studies that are shared with us, we're allowed to share with our doctors, as part of our wellness journey. And so I've given him some of those studies on why statins aren't warranted for people with high LDL on a low carb diet and things like that. And but so for him to tell me, no, it's no indication, if these arteries are completely clear but you're full of plaque down here, that doesn't make sense. And then, of course, my husband had a scope put down to see had he any blood clots in his heart, and they were able to determine that his atherosclerosis was actually mild rather than severe. So that was like, why do you talk out of your hat, when you have access to the science, but you can't relate that to me, because you just don't want me to know what the truth of my husband's health is. You just want to pop a pill, sign your script, and really not uh, help him have optimal health. So I asked him one day, I said, so see where he never says congratulations, or he never says, oh, that's great, Jean, that's wonderful. What are you doing? What are you actually eating that we're having all this progress? Because I see him every 6 weeks with my husband. And so I said to him one day, would you, for all of your patients, because I know there's only 15% of people that actually statins work for. So out of the other 85, what can they do? Because there's only the 15% they help. And he agreed with me. And I said to him, would you like to recommend this diet for any of your other patients, that are just not responding to all your medication and all your efforts? And he was like, no way. No way. And all you can see is benefits. All you can see is, how great it's going.
And Amanda, you do coaching, okay? Can you tell us more about your coaching platform for anyone
Yeah,
watching?
I'd love to. So I got on with Dr. Kiltz's Carnivore coaching course as things have changed here. And I think it was new to them with the new dietary regulations coming out. They did this year in America. Um, they wanted as many people to have access to the information as possible, which I thought was really amazing. So much these brave doctors have given us already on YouTube to help us advocate for ourselves on our health journeys. So for me, I'd already struggled, for my husband, for myself, to access better avenues to health through diet, through nutrition, and have found real healing, much like yourself, Chris. And so many benefits mentally, emotionally, and physically, and seeing disease reversed. But not everybody is like me. Not everybody will go to their doctor and speak for themselves or speak for somebody that they love. Lots of people that I know feel, they should just go and listen to what their doctor has to say. And I know that's more prevalent than somebody like me. In fact, I got criticized on threads the other day. Somebody said, probably a doctor himself, his comment was, doctors probably love to see the back of patients like me anyway. So why bother going to the doctor anyway if you're not going to listen to them? And I sent back another text. Yeah, I do want to listen. I don't feel like I know it all. And that's why I ask the questions that I ask. But I know there's so many people that won't ask the questions, don't know how to ask the questions. And it's not ignorance, it's, I just have a nice big mouth on me. But it's just the psychology of people going to doctors is, well, they've gone to college, they've done whatever. I guess I always believed that nutrition was medicine. Good nutrition was medicine, and it's something my nanny actually taught me. She always ate well, she always cooked well. Um, and I saw in the 80s, I saw when nurses told her, you shouldn't be eating butter, you shouldn't be eating cream, you shouldn't be frying your fish in this, whatever. And my nanny up to that point had a really good diet. And now she's on all this low fat crap. And I never saw the woman so depressed in my life until then. And so I was 8 when I observed this, and it stuck with me. And I thought, my nanny, she didn't know, she didn't have the information. Well, thanks be to God, we do have the information now because of these brave doctors, Dr. Sivas, Dr. Kills, Dr. Westman, Dr. Berry, there's Dr. Ovadia. So many that have risked their careers, and I know, there's so many more I'm not mentioning, and so thankfully we have this, and they've entrusted me with this information. They even the course on Dr. Kills, the cost of the course was so much, and I kind of bartered with them, if you'll let me take this long to pay it, back me, I certainly will give back to others your generosity, and that's really how I got on, because I couldn't afford to pay up front. And so thankfully I have this education now, and it's backed. Every week we have a class, in fact, where we can ask questions, and how we're trying to help people. We still have access to these wonderful coaches, wonderful doctors. Dr. Nelson Vasquez was our main tutor on there. And he has meetings with us every week, Zoom calls like this, where we're informed, and he's given us the latest science all the time, so that we can help people advocate for themselves. And if people don't feel confident to go to their doctors, this is where I can step in. I want everyone to go to their doctor, because I want these doctors to know, they've paid enough money in schools, and they've entrusted the education system there to give them the truth, but they've not received the truth by any means. Studies that they put out were falsified back in the 50s, back in the 80s to 77. So that's diabolical to me. So how can people make the right choice if they don't have the right information? And so I want to help people approach their doctors, work with their doctors, because I can't give medical advice, and I wouldn't. But I can help people get the information that they need by trying to bleed it out of these doctors.
Yeah. And if anyone wants to reach out to you, like, do you have a YouTube channel that we could put, like, we can put it in the description below now, and or an Instagram channel, and if you want to mention it there, your handle.
I'm Coach Mandy, Eat Meat. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, great. So check Amanda out, and thanks for coming on and sharing your story, Amanda.
Lovely talking with you, Chris.
And lovely talking to you, Amanda. And thanks everyone for watching. And make sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see you in the next video.